Okay, so we're going to look at making a halftone and putting it into your source file. So this is my source file with this first method, which is with the filter Pixelate color halftone. I can just go ahead and do it inside of my source file. I don't need to do it in a separate file. So let's make a new layer. It's a little messy in here. So I'm just gonna make a new layer by clicking the new layer button in the layers window. Make sure your layer window is open. If you can't see it, it's in window and layers. And I want to fill this with a gray color. So I'll try black and just see what happens. I'm going to edit, fill, and we're going to fill with the foreground color, which right now is black. And then we are going to do a filter, Pixelate color halftone. Let's change all of these channels, and this number refers to the size of your halftone texture. Okay, so that didn't do anything. What we need to do is to make it gray. So make sure you have a gray in there. To change the color in the foreground box, you're going to double click on it and then select a gray and say OK. Edit, fill with the foreground color, say OK. Let's try again. Filter, color halftone. So this shows up only on the layer that is selected, not on anything else. And this is really great because you don't need to create a halftone in a separate layer and then copy and paste it into your source file. You can see that the size of the little circles is pretty small. If I wanted a larger size, I would do filter, Pixelate, color halftone, and I would put a larger number in here. But what I would need to do, okay. So the nice thing also about this is that I don't need to undo to the time when it was just gray, if that makes sense. These are dots, and I can actually, even though they're already dots, I can do filter, Pixelate, halftone, and I can just keep changing the size. Let's try 40, and it's going to keep adjusting that one layer. So that's really convenient. Now let's try to integrate this a little better into the image. And one thing that you'll notice is that the dots are uniform. So I'm going to talk about how to create something in which the dots are not uniform. That kind of looks interesting. So I'm just bringing this down in the order. I'm going to change the opacity of this layer. And what I'm also going to do is change this mode to screen, which is going to blend the color into whatever the background color is. So I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom to where my background color is. If I now wanted to change the color of these dots, I would actually have to change the color of my background layer. So say I wanted this to be more green. I would pick a greenish, and you could go into your swatches now at this point and find a nice color that's inside of your swatch library that you've created from before. And okay, so I'm going to fill this, edit, fill with the foreground color, and I'm filling you'll notice this layer is my halftone, and this is my background color. So what's happening is the halftone is blending with the background color, and so those dots are actually the color of the background, and that's because it's on screen. You could try some other color modes and just see like what happens there. It's kind of interesting just to check it out. But screen is the one that's going to make the colors of the circles the color of your background. And then you can also just adjust the opacity. I'll show you another thing you can do. Let's make a new layer. Let's get the gradient tool, which is here. The shortcut key is G. And we need a gradient that is black and white. So let's go into basics and just get a basic black and white gradient. This has different options here. I'm on the first one, which is linear, which means it's a line. So let's go up this way and create like a black to white gradient. Okay, so this has like a pretty good gradation. Now let's do the same thing. Filter, pixelate, color halftone. I have to set the channels to 1 so that I'm only working with blacks and whites, and I'll keep this 40 as okay. So now you can see how the dots go from size 40 and then they get smaller and they kind of fade out into that gradation, and that is because we started with the layer that we started with had the gradation there. So if you want solid circles that are uniform, you're just going to use only gray, and if you want something that goes from dark to light, you're going to have to use the gradient tool and make that black and white gradient. We can set this to screen again, so that gives you a different effect. We can also attach this to certain areas. So say I only want this in the teapot for whatever reason, so let's find the teapot layer, and this is why it's really important when you color to don't color everything on the same layer, because then you won't be able to like separate and do things. I'm gonna call this halftone, and I'm going to attach. I only want this halftone to show up only in the teapot, and I can use the move tool to move the halftone where I want it to be. Okay, so I'm gonna press Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC. See how I get that box with the little arrow. So now I'm gonna click. So now this halftone layer is only showing up where the teapot is, and I can still use the move tool and like move the text, the halftone texture around to where I want it to be. I could also resize it if I want it to be a little smaller, so I'm going to do Command T, which is Edit Free Transform, Command T, and I'm going to resize this. So I'm going to go in the corner, from the corner, and my thing is proportional, so alright. So you can like adjust the size this way also if you decide that you want a smaller texture in there. Okay, so that's how I would put that in using the filter, pixelate, and halftone, color halftone.